Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. Frank Wolf with Dick Gallagher, and we are now joined by the Class A coaches that will be playing on Saturday, a game that will be seen on Spectrum. We've got Brian Davis from the McKinley Max, 9-0 McKinley Max, and of course Tim Delaney from South Park, who's also 9-0. And Dick, we've been talking that this very well could be the matchup of two of the fastest teams and maybe two of the best defensive teams we've seen in Western New York.
Two of the most physical teams, too.
Yeah, so I'm sure your guys will be leaving it all out on the field. I just hope they shake hands after, because it's going to be a tough physical game, and I don't think you guys would want anything less. Brian, talk about your team. I know last week it was a struggle with West Seneca West, a team that is no stranger to playing out here. There's enough veteran leadership. That's why we kind of figured that game could be closer than what many think, just because of the experience that the Indians had, and it came down to that pick six.
Yeah.
So just how did you keep your kids in the game, focused, heads down, eyes on the prize kind of thing?
I just told them that the game was not over. They have big play potential. The quarterback was excellent. The running back was even better. So I knew that they could have scored at any point in time, and I just told the kids just to stay focused, stay hungry. Just unfortunately, the offense didn't help the defense out. So defense came up big.
And Tim, in your case, playing Grand Island again, and a team that a lot of people said it was a team of destiny. And it looked like for some of that game they put a little bit of a scare in South Park that they really haven't had this year, even though Will North was a close one too, ended up being a closer game than we had thought. But that was a tough game too for Grand Island, or for South Park against Grand Island. You guys really had fought through adversity the last 2 weeks that you guys really didn't have those first 7. So that team now, having faced the adversity, is going to have another huge test against McKinley, a team that has not lost a game, another Buffalo City team. What are you expecting out of your guys come Saturday?
I just think, overall we've had a good year. The last few weeks have been good for us. You get some up and down and being in actual football games rather than, scoring a bunch of points early and kind of, you kind of hit the coast mode for a lot of the game, and that's not going to happen when you're playing championship games and possibly beyond. So the last couple of weeks were really good for us. We need to clean up some mistakes that we made. We felt like we turned the ball over a little bit against Grand Island and gave them some short fields. But overall, we've played some pretty good football for the last 9 weeks, and we're just trying to stick to that script.
In regards to your team, you guys, you could have had an office here. You were here so much. You guys went on to win a state title. First Buffalo school team, I believe, to do that. Were they not the first Buffalo school team to win a state title?
They've been first for a number of things.
We were first for a few things.
Do you have the ring? There it is. All right. By the way, CSP's is a little bit bigger than that. So if
they must have more money than me.
We'll have to see. But you've had some kids come out of nowhere, so to speak. Mikkel Hepburn, I didn't know who he was last year. He's having a phenomenal year. What's so special about Mikkel?
Mikkel was our starting quarterback he was our starting quarterback on JV as a freshman and a sophomore. Obviously gained a lot of experience doing that. He was a kid who could have played varsity football for us as a sophomore. We decided to keep him down there to play quarterback because we knew he'd be the quarterback.
How did he take that?
That was a conversation that we had. He could have been a receiver, a defensive back as a sophomore, which he was interested in. But we talked about, him playing quarterback as a junior and senior and being a 2-year varsity starter, that we would prefer him to take the snaps down there. And he was agreeable to it. And then, unfortunately, we got knocked out in week 8. Otherwise, he would have been a kid that would have been up with us, in any kind of playoff run. So it really worked out. Obviously, I think he's the type of kid that the moment is never too big for him. And he's athletic enough to kind of make up for some mistakes at times. So he's done really well. Marquand Fluitt is one of the best kids in Western New York all around. He's a really, really good defensive lineman, and I assume most people didn't know who he was as a sophomore last year playing for us. He's only a junior. But he had a great offseason. And
a couple other guys, though, that show up on the radar. You mentioned Fluitt, but is it Jason Armstead?
Jason Armstead's our other defensive end, yeah.
Another defensive end. They seem to work very well together, getting to the quarterback.
We've got some size there.
Yeah. We saw you in Lancaster at the 7-on-7, and you were worried about maybe the line play that day, how you were going to be. You weren't worried about your defensive backs. You weren't worried about your skill positions. How do you feel about the line today? And have they come together nicely in the way you expected?
Yeah, we've had a nice group. We start 4 underclassmen on the up front, and we still only start 1 senior on the offensive line. And I think that's always our concern. I think that's a lot of people's concern usually is how is the offensive line going to be in high school football, So we returned a couple of kids that were starters the year before, and then, a couple of JV kids came up. So and they've gelled together. They played pretty good together. We have our moments where it's not the greatest, but I think that's a lot of people. So overall, that's been a huge part of why we've been successful offensively.
Brian, when we look up and down the McKinley roster, I don't want to say that no one's jumping out at us. It looks like you guys are playing the perfect team game. There's like 10 guys there that are really good football players, and no one's necessarily looking to take the limelight. You guys are just playing a perfect team game of football. How would you summarize your team?
I think that's the best way to say it. It's team football. There's not one guy who, okay, this kid, he's the guy, and we got to try to get him the ball as much as possible, like it's been in previous years with McKinley. It's basically kind of like everybody is going to get their shot. Everybody has the opportunity to shine at some point, and the kids play a huge role together, and that's what's been working for us.
We heard Takio Funderburk's name quite a bit. Is it Dejan Medji?
DeJuan McGee.
DeJuan McGee, your quarterback. And then, of course, Javon Whitfield plays quarterback, too. Mm-hmm. So do you switch on and off, or does Javon get it looks like Javon gets a majority of the snaps.
So at first, DeJuan was starting quarterback, and we were going back and forth with a 2-quarterback system. Then it got to the point where, Javon, he just had to be the quarterback. So DeJuan ended up playing receiver. So that worked out well for us because he knows what everybody's supposed to do. It's like having 2 generals out there on the field.
Then you got these 3 guys on defense: Junior Sven, Devon Cotton.
Got him.
And Sam Moss. Each of them 16, 15, and 19 sacks respectively. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, those are pretty good numbers. Is that the strength of your team heading into this game?
Yeah.
Defense?
Our defensive line has been outstanding all year. They've put tons of pressures on quarterbacks and just offenses in general. They're fast, they're strong. That's our strong point on defense is our D-line.
This is the Class A game. It is going to be played on Saturday. It's the middle game, so I believe it's 3:15 right here at New Era Field. It is on Spectrum, and there will be an audio broadcast on Mixer. If you don't have a Spectrum, you can always listen to the game on Mixer.com/WNY Athletics. But for Tim Delaney, who has won a state championship, and for Coach Davis here, rookie head coach, they're going to get after it on Saturday. Hope you tune in to watch. And best of luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Excellent season, guys. Another 18-0 combined between these 2 head coaches. So we'll be back in just a few minutes after word from our sponsor.
We have hundreds of square feet of physical therapy in multiple locations. And with the physical therapy, we also have a strength and conditioning bridge program that can help athletes kind of specifically fine-tune their abilities in getting them back to specific sports. For people who are in tune to working with athletes of all different levels, from high school all the way up to the professional teams we take care of, this is a service that's offered through the UB Well program.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. Tom, you had a chance to catch up with the McKinley Macs and the South Park Sparks, Timmy Delaney's boys. 2 extremely fast, tough, physical teams. They're going to go at it. Why don't we take a look at those interviews that you did with the Sparks and then with the Macs?